Good morning and welcome to the Core Connection. I'm Mira Rubin here with you on Enlightened World Network, and today's topic is presence. And this comes out of a situation that I just went through. I'll tell you more about it when we get started. But before beginning, let's take a couple minutes on this Friday. Today actually is Friday. On this Friday to get present, get here in our bodies to enjoy this time together. Good morning, Rosalind. Welcome. Today it is Friday, so TGIF. We could say it's TG any day, but let's there you go, TGIF. So let's just take a couple minutes to settle in. So let's take a deep breath in through your nose and hold it. And imagine clean, crisp oxygen flooding your lungs, flowing into your bloodstream, nourishing all your cells, all your organs, bringing vital life energy to your body and being. And as you exhale, exhale any tension, stress, negativity, fatigue. And now let's take another deep breath in through your nose and hold it. This time, imagine brilliant, bright light lighting you up from the inside out, illuminating, electrifying, and energizing all your cells, all your molecules, your electrons, creating a brilliant beam of light and energy from your heart out into the world. And as you exhale, exhale any remaining tension, stress, negativity, fatigue. And now let's press our palms together, vigorously rub your hands together to feel the friction, the temperature, the pressure, the motion, and the tickling and tingling when you stop. And allow all those sensations to bring you present right here, right now, into this remarkable physical form that enables you to experience life. Welcome, welcome, welcome. So today we're talking about presence. And, I was gonna call it something else based on this situation that occurred, but presence is really what allowed me to navigate it. So I don't know how many of you have had the experience of taking a vehicle to get inspected, or taking a vehicle, to the dealership for a checkup or whatever, and then getting slapped with a multi-thousand-dollar bill. So pretty much every time I go to the dealership, they end up getting me for more than $1,000, which is not a minor amount of money. So this time I took my car in to get inspected yesterday, and they found a leak in something called a flex pipe, which connects the catalytic converter, which I don't know anything about anything, but it's the exhaust system, right? So they tell me they present a video, and the mechanic says, well, there's a leak in the flex pipe, but that's the only thing. It sounded minor until I spoke to the service technician, who says, oh, well, that's going to cost you $2,700 to get the work done that we were doing. And I almost fell off my chair. And so they didn't present me with any alternatives. They said, of course, I could take it elsewhere, or I could have it done there, but the car wouldn't pass inspection until the work was completed, because the exhaust system was leaking. So I felt like, okay, well, I don't have another option. I don't know how I'm going to manage this, but that's my only option. So After I told them to go ahead and do it. And fortunately for me, they weren't going to be able to do it until today. So it was gnawing at me and gnawing at me to think, it was the hose that was damaged. Again, this is where the presence part comes in, in the middle of being told that you have a bill that you're going to have to pay that's almost $3,000, and to figure out how to navigate that, and then to not be reeling from that and in reactivity and panic or whatever might arise when confronted with that kind of unanticipated expense. I kept thinking, well, wait a second, it's just the hose. It's just the hose that was damaged, and they want to replace this whole thing. So I decided to go online, and I found out that the hose actually could be replaced by itself. And in fact, I found a service like Just Ask. For $5, you can join this service that will answer any mechanic question you have. And I asked them, is it possible to just replace the hose instead of the whole assembly? And they told me, yeah, and it should be in the hundreds of dollars rather than the thousands of dollars. And then I looked online to see that the hose itself was available as a separate part. So this morning I called a mechanic and found out that I can get the hose itself just replaced, and that rather than $2,700, it would be more in the range of $500, which, although it's not negligible, is a fraction of what I was looking at. And so I was able to arrange for that to happen. Now, the thing is that had I been in panic mode, if I had not been able to be present, this is like practical presence, right? Had I not been able to be present, I wouldn't have been able to think it through and to explore other options, despite the fact that the dealership told me there were none. I called the dealership this morning and I said, hey, I want to just have the hose replaced. And this is just so disturbing. They said, well, that's not possible. It's all one assembly. And I said, that's not true. Online, I found that the flex pipe is available as a separate part, and that it's not a requirement to replace the whole assembly. Good morning, good evening, Gia. Welcome, welcome. I'm talking about car troubles, but it's not just car troubles. It's bigger than that. But really what we're talking about is the power of presence to allow us to help to navigate what could otherwise be a very challenging situation. So what this person told me, the service person told me that it wasn't available as an individual part, that the pipe itself couldn't be replaced. And I said, well, that's not true. And then they said, well, that's how we do it here. That's the only option to do it here. And we're talking about something, we're looking at 5 times the price to pay for something that wasn't needed. And telling me that there was no other option. And I caught him in a lie, essentially. And there was no apology for it, no recognition of it. And it went to making me think about how women especially get taken advantage of in situations like this, the mechanic kind of situation, where you need a repair and you don't know, and people prey on ignorance. And it just felt so predatory to me, so um, manipulative and abusive, really, to be saying, hey, it felt like being set up for robbery. It wasn't somebody who has my best interests at heart at all. Just very much company line. I'm just the messenger. And that's the way we do it, black and white, um, and misleading in the information that was provided. And it's when we think about service, and really what's wrong with our system, like here they're going to trash the whole system, create all that waste, create a greater expense, create a greater bottom line for them, of course, but at my expense, to create a repair that was unnecessary. It's maddening. It's maddening, because that is so indicative of our whole system. But going back to presence, by actually being present, to have heard what I heard, to be able, instead of going off in a frenzy about the amount of money that this was going to cost, to be listening into the situation more deeply, to see if there were other options. So when this is presence in its practical application, to be able, when we allow ourselves to be in the moment, to perceive what is available, to perceive what is possible, to be able to actually respond to a situation rather than to react to it, then opportunities and options open up to us, are accessible to us, that might not otherwise be even visible. And this is actually a really interesting thing too, when we're told by an authority that that we have only one option, then rather than just receiving that information as fact, we have a responsibility to ourselves, especially it seems in this time of upheaval and change and disruption. We have a responsibility to explore options, right? We have a responsibility. Like if we are given a medical diagnosis, sorry, I have an emergency to respond to here. If we have a diagnosis, for instance, a medical diagnosis, or are told that we should be getting a procedure done, or that we have this outcome projected in front of us, then we have a responsibility to, instead of getting thrown into this loop of fear and panic and maybe sorrow, grief, all these reactions that arise, if we can presence ourselves, then there are opportunities and alternatives that are likely to present themselves that would, as I said earlier, otherwise be inaccessible. And this goes to the notion of presence being the foundation of responsiveness rather than reactivity. It is through responsiveness that we are able, it's through presence that we're able to be responsive. So when something occurs, we often have a knee-jerk reaction, and it serves us to calm ourselves, to connect ourselves to our center, to utilize our breath, to allow ourselves to step back and see the bigger picture. And there are often pathways of movement when we recognize the bigger picture that we don't see when we're looking at one corner of the whole. So I guess I should have called this morning's conversation practical presence, because we may think that we're on a spiritual journey, and of course we are. You know, everything is part of that journey, including the mundane, you know, because we are not separable. We are one being, all of it, body, mind, spirit, emotion, physicalness, senses, all of it. It's all part of one thing, as we were discussing when we spoke about connecting with our bodies and honoring our body as the essential interface with the world. So we're not separable from it. When we allow ourselves to be in that bigger picture mode, then we can see the interplay of things, and oftentimes new pathways emerge that are generated by the need of the moment. So while I definitely, with the car dealership, while I definitely have an erosion of my trust for them, and a recognition that they definitely, and this isn't new information, but it was just like a huge confirmation that they definitely have their interests at heart at the expense of mine. That they're, you know, they're called service, but they may be they're servicing their agency, right? They're not serving me, other than to produce something that's going to generate as much income as possible for them. At least that's my experience. You know, my experience here is that a trust is broken, and I really need to watch my back. Now I really know that, and I get to interact with them at my, not my peril, but with caution, you know, being overly cautious. And believe me, I will tell them that I feel that the trust is broken, you know, that there's been a violation there. And I may even talk to management about it, because I would love to see a paradigm of business where service is really service, where people value their customers, where they have a sense of loyalty to their customers also. You know, if he had told me, you know what, you could actually, we can't do it here, but you could actually find someone who could replace just the pipe for you and it would be a lot less expensive. If he had told me that, it would cultivate my trust and I would feel better about using their services in the future, right? But I think we get to look at what's integrity. It brings up the question of integrity, and integrity is based on integration. So when we look at our own personal integrity, we're looking at the integration of ourselves and how we operate in respect and with honor for that integrity. And there was something, especially when he said, well, it's all one piece, that it was something that really, really, truly lacked integrity to me. And I think there's tremendous value in cultivating integrity in our relationships. You know, I was in sales for a bunch of years, and for me, I was an outside sales rep for an optical company, multiple optical companies. And my customers were my friends, and I had their best interests at heart. I was looking to serve them. And when my job became something that was contingent upon quotas that were to the detriment of my customer, I felt that my integrity was threatened, and I wasn't able to serve the company and serve my customers and maintain my integrity in a way that was going to meet all expectations, or my expectations of proper business. And I became really, really miserable in my job, to the point where I had to leave. I had to leave. And I got deeply, deeply depressed, and, you know, was feeling suicidal even before I gave myself permission, you know, to move on. I mean, it was just dark, because I felt like they were requiring me to violate my integrity, which was to be providing a service rather than to be making sales at all costs. And I think that this is a question that so many of us who are healer type people encounter, and people who are spiritually oriented encounter when it comes to money, because we associate these out of integrity practices with money itself, because people engage in them to make more money, right? They engage in these practices in the name of money, but the fact is it's they who are sacrificing their integrity. It's not money. It's that their lust for money is something they're using as a motivation to betray their own integrity and to be predatory with others. So it's not necessary to be predatory in providing goods and services. It can be providing goods that are needed and services that are needed at a fair exchange rate, a fair rate of exchange that is honoring both sides of an interaction, of a transaction, that it's not simply transactional. What if it's relational? And how much more might be available to us if we allow ourselves to be connected and in relationship, and not try to gouge others, not try to get the best deal at the expense of someone else. What if we get to make it a win-win? What if we exchange value rather than try to get the better of one another? So, wide-ranging conversation, I get it, but it comes back to being present to our own integrity, being present to the bigger picture, being present to our surroundings, and also what things get stirred up within us, so that we can clear that to deepen our actual presence, to be able to be responsive rather than reactive. There's profound, profound power in all of that. And so that's the thought to be entertaining, if you would, over the weekend, and maybe every day, is how do I bring myself more deeply into presence? It doesn't mean necessarily sitting in the lotus position and breathing through your belly. Presence is something that we can take into the world. We can make all of life be a walking meditation. And that's a really gift. I'm sorry, that's a real gift, to bring presence into life. And just, Gia says, what a conversation. Thank you, Mira. Loved it all. Gia, thank you so much for that. I really appreciate that. I want to end today with this just delightful thing that happened yesterday. I was at the grocery store, and there was a woman who had her child in the cart, and another child also with her. And I was walking by, and this little girl, I don't know how old she was, she's a little girl, smiled at me, the most amazing smile, like her whole body lit up with this beautiful, beautiful joy. And she just lit me up to connect with her in that way. And we just smiled at each other with such recognition and appreciation, to the point where her mom said something to her. It's like, oh, you see her, about her seeing me. There she is, because I moved somewhere, and she was like, there she is, you're looking for her. And we just had this delicious, delightful, amazing connection. And it just lit up my day. So that's part of presence, right? That's part of being able to be responsive to your environment and engage with the people that you encounter, and the nature that you encounter, and the experiences that you encounter, from a place of wholeness and alignment and integrity. So with that, that's it for today. I'm Mira Rubin. This is the Core Connection, and I go live here each weekday morning at 9 a.m. Eastern on the Enlightened World Network Facebook page and YouTube channel. And I invite you to check out the other wonderful, wonderful programming on Enlightened World Network and Enlightened World Living. I wish you a wonderful weekend. Thank you for your wishes. And it's, as always, such a privilege and pleasure to have the opportunity and the gift of sharing these mornings with you. So with much gratitude, so much love.